investigative pieces in the world of sports. Catch our uncut and filtered coverage on Augustine's Final Whistle, your destination for breaking news, sharp expert analysis, and hard-hitting investigative pieces in the world of sports. Catch our uncut and filtered coverage on Augustine's Final Whistle, your destination for breaking news, sharp expert analysis, and hard-hitting investigative pieces in the world of sports. Now to Augustine's Final Whistle and never miss a moment. Turn on notifications, stay ahead of the game, and be part.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. My name is Augustine. Welcome. Good evening, and welcome to Augustine's Final Whistle. Today is Wednesday, the 3rd of June 2026, and I sincerely wish to thank you for joining me wherever you are watching us from around the world. This platform is dedicated to strictly sports, particularly football or soccer in the United States of America. However, we are, in a community where we're bound to discuss various issues, including social issues, sports disciplines, and society issues that impact our community and sporting institutions. So we definitely will delve into various issues of discussion, and I wish to welcome you to join this conversation. Today's podcast, has got three topics that we're looking at. We're looking at the allegation of mismanagement, corruption, and a vote of no confidence within the Zambia Athletics Association, formerly, used to be called Zambia Amateur Athletics Association, as in ZA, triple A, then came back to Zambia Athletic Association, and now Zambia Athletics. So we will be discussing the issues within ZA that I imagine are very, very serious issues. Beyond ZA, we have what I've termed a bizarre verdict from the Football Association of Zambia Player Status Committee involving the player by the name of Jacqueline Chomba. She's a defender who played for ZIC FC as well as Zesco United. She was recently on loan to Zesco United, and then she also was featured for the national team, the Copper Queens, and went on to play for them at the COSAFA tournament a couple of years ago. Beyond the Jacqueline Chomba verdict, we will also discuss one very strange decision from the FAS, Luapula Province Football Association of Zambia, involving another player, ineligible player decision. So we will be looking at that, the decision of the Player Status Committee in Luapula, as well as what the ultimate decision was. Away from the issues to do with player status, we will proceed to look into the leadership crisis in Lusaka Province for FAS. Their allegation against Mr. Jordan Maliti. Mr. Jordan Maliti is a chairperson for the FAS Lusaka Province. So as chairperson for the FAS Lusaka Province, he also sits on the FAS National Executive Committee. Remember that the FAS National Executive Committee is chaired by the FAS president, Mr. Keith Mwamba, his vice chairman, Mr. Mtalengando. Then there's also a women, national representative, which position is occupied by Colonel Priscilla Katoba. Beyond Colonel Priscilla Katoba is a vacant position that has been injuncted of Mr. Of the Zambia Premier League. That position has been injuncted subject to a court settlement. So we do have, beyond the Zambia Premier League, the four national leaders. Then we do have provincial heads, chairperson of association in these provinces. So we'll be discussing the issue to do with Mr. Maliti as the program goes on. Mr. Maliti has been accused of sexually abusing one of his executive committee members. He's also been accused of mismanagement. We did reach out to Mr. Maliti to get his version of the story. We will be telling you what his response, if any, has been. But before we go into the main topics, I wanted us to look at a quick recap of news in this world. Last night we did witness Senegal emerging African champions at under 17. They defeated Tanzania 4-2 on penalties. The match ended 1-0 in regulation time. So that was the outcome of the African Youth Under 17 Championship. Congratulations to the Teranga Lions. I mean, this Senegal has been in incredible shape since the beginning of 2000. They won the 2001 Africa Cup of Nations at the senior level. They went on to win the Africa Cup of Nations in 2025. Two Africa Cup of Nations in the last 5 years. They proceeded to win the African Nations Championship, CHAN, which is now defunct in 2023. I think CHAN has been done away. The CAF Executive Committee has scrapped that tournament off strictly for local players. They're introducing some sort of competition that is pretty much like the League of Nations. So beyond the CHAN, Senegal also won the Under 20 Africa Cup in 2023. So that is Senegal's incredible feat. And I think last night they capped it with the Under 17. This is unprecedented dominance by an African team across all age group competitions. They just have not shown up yet within the Women's League, but there's something evidently they are doing right. And we have to learn from what Senegal is doing. Beyond the Senegalese story, we come to the Four Nations tournament that will be played at Levi Monawasa Stadium in Ndola. We did get information, an update from the Football Association of Zambia, announcing the arrival of the Kenyan team. Zambia will play Kenya on the 6th of June, which is Saturday. They'll be playing Kenya at 15 hours in that Four Nations tournament. We also get news that Lesotho has arrived. Lesotho will also play Zimbabwe in that Four Nations tournament. So for soccer fans, this is your team. The Copper Queens are preparing for the Africa Cup of Nations, which is known as the WAFCON. That tournament will be played in Morocco at the end of July and the beginning of August. That is a crucial tournament. Should the Copper Queens reach the last four, they will be proceeding to the World Cup, which will be held in Brazil. So this is an important Four Nations tournament that we need to follow closely and ensure that we rally around the team. We did also get some interesting news yesterday from FAS Lusaka, FAS Central Province. In Central Province, the Football Association of Zambia out there has pretty much demoted or expelled from the provincial national Division 1 tier. They have expelled Crown FC. Now, Crown FC is formerly Machacha FC, owned by the former General Secretary of FAS. Well, before he left, Football House, he had mentioned that he decided to do away with that team because he was proceeding to get the position of General Secretary, and therefore he was giving it up. So at that point, I think now we do have the team by different owners. So they didn't fulfill a fixture. There are strict rules, very strict. You might consider them very harsh, but I think colleagues in Central Province have got specific guidelines. And those guidelines stem from experiences within the league. So whenever a team does not fulfill a fixture, especially in Division One, even if it's a single fixture, provided they didn't follow that procedure and the match is abandoned, is a walkover, that team is expelled from the Division One setup. And that is what happened. Why is that the case? I did try to find out, and they issued a statement. I think the regional general secretary out in Central Province did issue a statement to explain the circumstances. So the decision came up because of multiple complaints, of corruption within the league. Towards the end of the league. Now, I'm not saying this is what happened in these specific games. In this specific game, what I understand is the players at Crown FC are down tools because of payments, issues to do with payments. So because they are down tools, the team did not, fulfill the fixture. They couldn't raise a team to go and play their one of their matches. Now, when that happens, the executive would expel you. Why is that the case? They would do that because previously, or in fact, it still happens. There are allegations that, in our football, whenever there's a contest, for instance, for the top, for the title, for promotion or demotion, when it reaches fever pitch and teams are trying to survive or win promotion, there are so many underhand tactics that do happen. If they don't manage to get a hold of the referee, there are instances where a team is approached not to fulfill a match so that their opponent gets the 3 points and it becomes a walkover, because whenever you don't fulfill a fixture, it becomes a walkover and your opponent gets a 3 point. So there have been allegations, some of them very substantiated allegations, where teams have thrown away matches. Sometimes players do throw away matches, crucial matches. To avoid, the rampant rise in such acts, what Central Province did was to strictly, tell all their participants, particularly in Division One, not to miss matches. Should they miss matches, they should count themselves expelled from Division One. So I am told Crown FC know the rules. They do understand the rules. It sounds like a harsh decision, very strict, but it is very, very important, because sometimes strong sanctions, indeed, not only sometimes, but always, strong sanctions send a message that such conduct will not be tolerated. But no, allegation against them regarding match malpractice. They just missed the game. They failed to fulfill the rules, and they're out of the league. Unfortunately, that is what it is. So we also saw the new first General Secretary, Charles Takatazi. I think it was a good gesture. He visited the Permanent Secretary of Sports. Like you are aware, there is no Minister of Sports at the moment, because obviously Parliament was dissolved, and therefore Cabinet also was dissolved ahead of the August elections. So, as a courtesy to one of the major funders of FAS, the FAS General Secretary did visit the Permanent Secretary of Sports, Mr. Kangwa Chiche. I think that was a very good initiative, good gesture by the newly appointed FAS General Secretary, Mr. Charles Chakatazi. We do have the transfer window. Yesterday, I think, or the other day, we saw the Zambia Premier League issue a notice that the transfer window is now open. Players are free to move from one club to the other. Transfers can happen between now and August 31st, thereabout. I am discussing two issues to do with player transfers later in the program. And what I have discovered is that there's a lot of relaxation in rules and procedures when it comes to player transfers, their eligibility, particularly in the Women's League. I understand the Women's League is, in its infancy in Zambia professionally. It's only less than 10 years old. So if the league is around about less than 10 years old, it's experiencing a lot of teething problems. The cases of ineligible players is so massive and widespread. You find that sometimes a team would have used five ineligible players in one match. I mean, it's difficult to understand. But again, um, you can appreciate that this league is in its infancy to get the players. But I think this is a golden opportunity for all the officials, for all the players to begin moving and make sure they are registered and they are on the system to avoid cases of ineligible players. Um, Moving on, we do have the Zambia under 17 women's national team eyeing a record third time appearance at the World Cup. So the team has been to the World Cup the last two times. And the previous time they even reached the round of 16. Now the coach is challenging herself. Madam Carol Kanyamba has done incredibly well. One thing I am hoping I'm working on is she has been well remunerated because we do take care of expatriate coaches when they are taking care of our teams. Do we take care of our local coaches? I would particularly want to know because she has had a lot of missed allowances and missed payments. And I'm hoping that the Football Association of Zambia is paying particular attention in motivating her and the technical bench for the incredible work they're doing at the women's under 17. We are going into the final round. No stones need to be left, as they say, unturned. We must go into the that round fully prepared, fully geared, and well motivated. So Zambia will be playing Ethiopia at home on the weekend of 3rd to 5th July. A week later, around the 10th to the 12th, they will fulfill the return leg. That will determine Zambia's participation at the FIFA World Cup. It will be held in Morocco in November and December, obviously, towards the end of November into December. This is a golden opportunity to make history one more time. And congratulations again to Coach Taro Kanyemba. Away from the local news, we're moving on to the World Cup. The World Cup is around about 7 days away. And, 7 days away, there will be the world's premier sporting event. That's the biggest sporting event in the world. So, all the teams are preparing. 10 African teams are going to represent the African continent, and all of them are preparing. Just yesterday, we did see Ghana play Wales. They drew 1-0. They'll be based in Boston, which is in the up north of the United States of America. Then the Democratic Republic of Congo are currently engaged in a friendly against Denmark in Liège, Belgium. So that is where they're also warming up. We do have, unfortunately, the cancellation of a match between the DRC and Chile because authorities in Spain have raised issues to do with the outbreak of the deadly virus Ebola in the DRC, and there are issues to do with safety and health measures in Spain. So that match will not take off on Sunday. We are hoping the DRC would find a replacement if they can, but if they don't, probably they would have only played one match, which is against Denmark today, and proceed to Houston, where they will be based. Their first game is against Cristiano Ronaldo's Portugal. But Morocco, the 2022 World Cup semi-finalists, did have a friendly against Morocco, against Madagascar. They won 4-0. So they defeated Madagascar 4-0. A great game over there. So that is pretty much it for our updates on the World Cup. And now we will be moving on to our topics of the day. I'll be playing a couple of videos to begin with the issue with the Zambia athletics. Zambia athletics in a crisis. What is happening there? Let's first hear how the complaints started and where they were being addressed and what former sports minister Elvis Nkandu had to say about the issues to do with ZA. Let's from the sports minister himself, the former sports minister rather, former sports minister Elvis Nkandu. And see if we can bring in former sports minister Elvis Nkandu here, and just make sure that we build the case on this matter. There are various complaints at the, and we're wondering what could be the issue there. It's one. Before I bring you sports minister, let me just make sure that we have the video properly set up, and I'll be with you in a moment. We were not able to get that video from Honorable Minister, but we do have another video from Diamond TV giving us a summary of some of the issues arising from the Zambia Athletic Association. Let's capture this video, then you will have my comment and some of the details that we've received from our contacts at Zambia Athletic. Thank you very much.
Sombwa Musunsa has called on members of Zambia Athletics to uphold discipline within the organization, stressing that good governance and disciplined conduct are essential for the sport's growth and development. The soccer course is the first and planned nationwide rollout, with Zambia Athletics set to take the program to other provinces.
30 officials and administrators have gathered in Lusaka for the Zambia Athletic Administrators Course, a platform that has brought together key figures from across the sport to tackle governance issues that has held the organization back for years. Zambia Athletic President Major Bernard Bwalia has used the occasion to call for sweeping constitutional reforms.
Is the issue of the term of office for the provincial area boards. 2 years. 2 years is too short a time for people to clearly develop whatever they put in place. So we're trying to push and see how best we can equate the term of office for the executive and also the term of office for the provincial area board. Move them all to the 4 years and also ensure that we have a 2-term limit. Zambia Athletics has no policies. As we are speaking today, we have no single policy, no financial policy, no road race policy, no code of conduct policy. We can't go on living like this.
Adding his voice to the call for change is National Sports Council of Zambia Chief Executive Officer Sombwa Musunsa, who was called on Zambia Athletic members to uphold discipline.
Let me talk about discipline within ZA. I think it's something that is being eroded to a great extent. Everyone wants to say whatever they want to say. Everyone wants to do whatever they want to say. Someone wake up today from wherever they slept and say they're going to suspend the president. What authority do you have to just wake up from nowhere without even following the provisions of the Constitution and you suspend the president? Who was elected? Although the margin was little, but he was elected. We can't continue year to year talking about that, fighting all the time around this period. It's like a ceremony, a traditional ceremony that happens every year. Around this period, from December coming into January, February, it's about that. We can't continue that way. And the President, we need you and we are requesting you to have a
yeah, and Zambia athletics at large. You know, in all the organizations, there should be administrators who will be administering the welfare of athletics, which we give thanks to the government who are looking upon every sport. And
the Lusaka Coast is the first in a planned nationwide rollout, with the Zambia Athletic set to extend the program to Copperbelt, Central Provinces and Western Provinces, focusing on capacity building for officials and athletes across the country. Kenan Siame, Diamond Sports.
Please, and you look like you're smiling. All right, and now for boxing news. Reigning WBC bantamweight champion David Mwale delivered a commanding performance on home soil, knocking out
Thanks so much. So that's the. Thank you so much for your patience and for your time. So that's pretty much a snippet of what is happening in ZA. It appears Bernard Walia, who interestingly was only elected sometime in February or March of last year, in 2025, has had issues with managing the association. Some of his members are displeased with the style of management, and they now used their provisions to pass a vote of no confidence, alleging misappropriation of funds, mismanagement, and gross misconduct. I do have one of the letters that some of the correspondence they wrote, and I also did reach out to the National Sports Council CEO, Mr. Tombwa Mususa. So the issue there is that when your affiliates raise issues of misconduct, issues of mismanagement, and they need a grievance procedure to take place, I think they must be given an opportunity. They must be heard. Yes, it might be too early in the reign of Major Bernard Walia, but what is he doing? Have we investigated? Are these claims legitimate? Is there a need to focus on that? Government spends a lot of money on these associations, and one of the most disappointing things of the last 5 years is that the National Sports Council itself has operated without a board for 5 years. I don't think you can develop any sport. You can win medals in a country if you don't pay particular attention to your sport. What's the sports policy here? I saw that we do have now a new National Sports Council law, which was hurriedly passed recently among those 70-something bills that were presented to Parliament shortly before the dissolution of this session. But where is the implementation of some of these decisions? Where is the National Sports Council board? I think it's very critical that these issues are attended to, because they raise pertinent matters that deserve immediate attention, because if you were elected in March and by December you're already being accused of misconduct, you're already being accused of mismanagement, misappropriation of funds, then what is it that you're doing in the association? I did reach out to Mr. Sombwa. However, we are yet to get feedback from him on what the government is doing. But we understand that finally there has been a forensic audit, and it will be key and critical that details of that forensic audit are shared with stakeholders. Stakeholders deserve to know what is happening at ZA. Stakeholders must be duly informed so that if Major Walia is innocent, those issues are settled and that he can run athletics, because within the next year and a half or so, Zambia is supposed to be preparing to go to the Olympics. And we've been sending athletes to the Olympics, but without medals. We come back without medals. We have one athlete in Muzala Samkonga who is our hopeful for medals at the next Olympics. I think those Olympics will be held in Los Angeles, California. And I think we must focus on issues that deal with achievement and the success of our athletes. So my appeal to the National Sports Council, particularly Mr. Sombwa, is that these matters must be attended to with the agency they deserve. We need to know what the crisis is all about. We need to know what the forensic audit has established, and decisions and actions must be taken. The members must be heard. They deserve to be heard because they are the owners of the sport. They are the ones who elected and gave Mr. Major Walia that responsibility. And he must be able to deliver on the responsibility of the members. If there is corruption, if there is mismanagement and it has been established, these must be dealt with decisively. Moving on to away from athletics, we'll move on to the case of Jacqueline Chomba. Jacqueline Chomba and ZISD. It's a very interesting case. I would declare interest from the word go, because I'm a part of ZISD, and I think I understand some of these issues. I'm looking at the principle of this case. A brief background of this case is that this player has been at the club, and these do happen, in many football clubs and among players. There are numerous such cases. One such case, I think that happened a few years back, or just a year or two, or just last year, was involving Andrew Perry from FC Musa. When the player met an agent, it was a crisis. So I have dealt with these player issues for a long time, beyond understanding what is happening to the case of Jacqueline Chomba, in as much as I want to declare a particular interest because, I belong to ZISD. So if a player, who has been on a club's books, Jacqueline, the brief facts are that she joined ZISD 7 years ago. Now, in January 2025, into the end of that season, she wanted to move on to other challenges. The club was willing to release her. But immediately after the season in 2025, the player disappeared and showed up at Zesco United. When the player showed up at Zesco United, obviously Zesco did their due diligence and established that the player belonged to ZISD. And they reached out to ZISD. At that point, there was a loan deal. The loan deal was signed for 6 months. The player moved on to Zesco United from June of 2025 to December that year. During that period, Jacqueline decided to report ZISD to the Football Association of Zambia. When she reported to the Football Association of Zambia, she claimed that she had not been paid her allowances or her salary for a certain period. And she was owed, and therefore she wanted to place the club in default. Of course, she was being aided by her agents, and that case went on to be adjudicated recently by the Player Status Committee, chaired by Mr. Nicholas Momba, the chairperson of Southern Province FAS. Now, the interesting facts in this case are that the current contract for Jacqueline is a 3-year contract running from 2024 to 2027. 2025 to 20, it's a 3-year contract running up to about 2027. That is the contract the two parties signed. However, when the matter went to the Player Status Committee, a new contract emerged. First of all, ZISD disputed they don't owe the player. Since that was the dispute, that was a dispute that was to be adjudicated by the Player Status. Now, when the matter went to Player Status, there was a new contract that emerged. That new contract clearly shows that it has been altered. The number 7 to show ending 2027 has been amended with a pen to show that the contract ends in sometime in June 2025. Now, any naked eye can see that amendment. If I have a contract somewhere nearby, I can show what I'm talking about. So, when that matter went to the Player Status Committee, after it was amended, after the contract was amended, both parties argued their cases. Then the Player Status Committee demanded proof that Jacqueline had received a payment from ZISD. If you've run some of these clubs and you are in football, you understand that most of our players, particularly in women's football, come from less privileged societies, even in men's football. That's why we say football is a poor man's sport. So most of them, they do not have accounts, bank accounts. So transactions are done via mobile. And you pay the players as you go. ZISD has got a good structure where players are paid. Some players in the league, in the women's league, do not even receive salaries. Some players just play, with the hope and the mission of becoming the next Kundananji. To have the story of Barbara Banda, you come from Bauleni, play for Busa, and then proceed to find yourself at Orlando Pride. Come from, Chiwempala in Tingola, move on to Indeni Roses and get to Spain. You find yourself at BFC in the United States, California. That is how most of these, players in our girls' league, are taken care of. It is self-driven motivation to achieve. And when they come to the national team, that becomes their lifeline. That becomes their lifeblood. That's why you find that they compete to come to the national team. So ZISD is owned by individuals. The league is not sponsored. It pays bonuses just like teams that are sponsored by state entities such as Green Buffaloes, Red Arrows, Zanaco, Zesco, and the others. Some of the teams that are owned by individuals, check around. There is a huge struggle. But these are people that are making individual sacrifices to contribute to the development of Zambian football. That does not mean that they should take advantage of these girls. They should still ensure that they compensate these girls to the best of their abilities. And any player who is not paid has a legitimate claim to go to FAS, to go to the player union and demand that they are paid. After all, that is their money and that is what they worked for. Now, when you look at the records, Jacqueline was paid, but let's assume she wasn't paid for 2 or 3 months. There's no way that ZISD can fail to pay those funds. But when the matter went to player status, the dispute was that this is a player on a contract running up to 2027. You have a contract that runs up to 2027 in your possession, in your records that you submit to the player status committee. You then find at FAS a contract the player and the agent have submitted that has been amended to end in 2025. The matter comes up as a dispute. You, as a player status committee, rely on a forged contract, on a forged contract to make a decision and say the contract for the player ended in June 2025 and therefore she's a free agent. That's a very strange decision. What makes it strange in this case? First of all, you can ask yourself a basic question. How did the player whose contract ended in June 2025 move on to play on loan with Zesco United from ZISD? That's the most basic question when you see two different stories. You see one contract is ending in 2025 and another contract is ending in 2027. The most basic thing to do is to look at the circumstances. So how did Zesco accept a player from ZISD? Why did the player at the end of June 2025 or July 2025 move to play for Zesco as a free agent rather than moving from ZISD to go to Zesco or not? You have the player status committee with evidence of a fraudulent contract. In fact, two contracts. One has ending in August, the other one ends in July 2025, with one signature of a player without the signature of the club. The other has got two signatures, the signature of the player, the signature of the club. But you proceed to make a decision without considering the material facts. Now let's assume, or let's imagine that as a result of that potentially criminal offense, the club reports the player to the police and the player is arrested for fraud. What's the football family going to say? The football family would not be happy. The football family would we need to help these players. I have got issues with the manner in which the FAS registry is being managed. There's so much corruption in that department. That is the same department that created a chaotic scene during the FAS election. That FAS employee called Nyambe Matindo, in fact, I even met him in Cabo, and I told him what they did, which the FAS president described as a joke of the century, was unacceptable. I'm now wondering what these characters are still doing at Football House. How are they being allowed to manipulate system? How can you upload in a FAS system a contract that has been fraudulently signed? A contract that is clearly amended to the exclusion of another party. And you guys in the player status committee, you go and sit. The most grave issue in that case was the presence of two different contracts that were not signed by another party. You go and rely on details from a contract that is signed by one party and not both parties. But there's another contract that is signed by both parties. I think we must end the corruption. There's a gentleman during the first election, Keith Mwemba said it was a joke of a century. It means that the people who were handling that process in the first registry, where most of the anomalies were coming from, were literally jokers. Nyambe Matindo, that lad is not supposed to be working at Football House as we speak today, because the chaos they created during the election was unacceptable. Here is one thing they did during the elections. When you go into the first system, you can deactivate an official and make them passive. So if that official is passive, it means that that official is not currently a member of us because they have not affiliated themselves. They haven't paid the affiliation fee. But we still have those people. They are conniving with agents and players to manipulate the first system. And you have a chairperson who is the National Executive Committee who doesn't interrogate these issues. Then what are you doing on the first committee? What is your business? Is this the reason why you were elected from Southern Province to come and be a pedestrian adjudicator? As an adjudicator, you must question, you must raise various questions. Yes, there's an appeal process. And for sure, ZISD will appeal. They have said, look, this player will have to go. Okay? Because they have their own issues with the player. But the principle is that the rot in the first registry must come to an end. Charles Chakatazia himself, I did send him a press query, and I'll read it out. I'll read it out because I did send Charles Chakatazia a press query, the first general secretary. Before he was appointed first general secretary, Charles Chakatazia was sitting on the player status committee as a member of the player status committee. So when this matter came up, I know he had knowledge of this matter, and I sent a press query to him. I said, good morning, GS. Hope you are well. Kindly attend to my press query on the player status verdict in the case of Jacqueline Chomba and ZISD. ZISD presented evidence that the player admitted, indeed, the player even admitted to amending the contract. He changes a 7 to a 5. And it's clear on the contract that that has been changed. When she was confronted, she says, no, I'm sorry. This evidence was presented to the player status committee. ZISD presented evidence that the player admitted to committing a criminal offense by forging a contract. It's alleged that Miss Jacqueline and her agent submitted at least 2 contradictory versions of the ZISD contract. First one, which has been availed to me, had clearly altered end of NDA in original contract, dates of 13th August 2024 to 13th August 2027. This was amended to end 13th August 2025, which the player admitted to forging. The second contract is showing dates changed to end in July 2025 and does not have any ZISD signature. How did the player status committee arrive at the conclusion that the player's contract ended in July 2025? When there is evidence of fraudulent activity and admittance of guilt by the player. Ms. Chomba allegedly had a 2-year contract running from 20 July 2023 to 20 July 2025. However, the committee acknowledges that Ms. Chomba played for Zesco Girls on a loan transfer from ZISD for the period 1 July 2025 to December 2025. So if the committee acknowledges that the player was on loan at Zesco, how does the same committee declare the player a free agent at that point? Very contradictory decision. I think the player status must pay particular attention to these cases. And when there is a case of fraud, it is a grave matter. We know and we understand that in football, we're not allowed, or there are rules not to go to court on football matters. But with criminal matters, that is beyond football. You can easily take somebody to court who was criminally, infringed on football. So Jacqueline can easily be taken to the police. But you see, this is a girl who needs our help. This is a girl who needs everyone's help. The best is to find a win-win situation for both the girl and the club. I think there is no way we should tolerate or we should allow a situation where players are let scot-free when they're doing wrong, because these are the problems. When they go to the national team, it becomes more scandals and more scandals. We've had players in the past who have signed 2 contracts. We've had players who have ended their careers in similar fashion. And as fans, we must be above board to help these players, particularly when there is evidence to show there was wrongdoing. It is my hope that there will be a serious cleanup in the FAS registry. Nyambe Matindo does not deserve to be in that position. For the mischief they did during the elections, you don't need that boy well, you don't need that man. I'm sorry to refer to him as a boy, but you don't need that man in FAS. You don't need that man in the FAS registry. The manipulation to the system was unacceptable, and we cannot continue with that. Gregory Sinyangwe himself does not, you see, he has overstayed in that position. Let's make changes to the registry department of FAS. It's scandalous, very corrupt. And everyone who runs football in Zambia knows what I'm talking about. It is unacceptable. I mean, these guys, last time, they even created a crisis for ZISD. On one weekend, or is it on a Friday, they removed a player from the system. ZISD went to play. When they played without checking the system, that player featured as an ineligible player. Their opponents in that match picked that information. How? No one knows, but obviously we can speculate. And they lost 3 points. No. There's a lot of debt in that registry department. We need to deal with it unless the first president, who according to the constitution is a supervisor of the secretariat, is a joker himself. Because if he's a joker himself, then yes, he can keep those jokers who he accused of causing a joke of the century in the last election. I think we must work on that registry. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. We cannot continue. We'll not go anywhere. We can only speculate that if the first president wants to keep those guys, then he wants to use them in the next election to manipulate the electoral process, like they contributed to manipulating the electoral process in the last election. I mean, there's a case of one official, two dates of birth, 2 registration in the system. We had them. I think I must even have published that. Okay. That in itself, the official should have been disqualified. How he found himself on the ballot, no one knows. He went on and lost the election. But if you ask me today whether those two registrations are still in the system, no, they're not. They have deleted it. So they have the access to manipulate the system. And this must come to an end. You can do an audit query on the system, you can contact FIFA, and FIFA can assist, but this must come to an end. I am aware that ZIC is not the only club that has got complaints about the registry department. There are so many clubs and colleagues that are complaining about those guys. That system must be cleaned up. The first secretariat needs a proper cleaning. And I hope Charles Chakatas, as new general secretary, has taken note of these concerns. We cannot continue like this. Zambian football will not go anywhere. We will be going round circles. Well, let's go. I think I've made it clear. Made it clear, very clear on the rot in the registry department at FAS. Of course, the entire secretariat is a mess. You know, I am moving on to one issue that I previously extensively wrote about, you know, and this is to do with sexual allegations in women's sport. You know, many people called me names. They said what, you know, they needed to say, you know. I mean, it even, unfortunately, laughable as it may, you know, attracted a legal suit, you know, from the former FAS president. But these issues are real. These issues are happening. Now, there's a presumption of innocence until one is proven, you know, otherwise. And as I talk like this, I am not saying I found Mr. Jordan Maliti guilty. I believe he deserves to be heard. He deserves an opportunity, you know, before an independent committee, transparent investigation, and that must conclude and come up with a report. I did reach out to Mr. Maliti. There's a problem in the leadership at Lusaka province, and this problem must be resolved in the soonest possible time. What is the problem? Some executive committee members have risen against the chairman. Number one, they are accusing Mr. Maliti of sexually abusing the FAS women's rep on a committee, Miss Samantha Mianda. That matter, apparently, according to information I've gathered, was reported to the Human Rights Commission, and an investigation has been done, and the report has been submitted to the FAS Ethics Committee. So the FAS Ethics Committee has two chambers. There is an investigatory chamber, and there's also an adjudicatory chamber. So these two streams are drawn from the FIFA structure, where when there's a matter of ethical misconduct, an investigation must first be carried out. When the investigation has been carried out, that report must then be passed on to the adjudicatory chamber, who then, you know, pronounces the outcome of the investigation. At this point, if a report by the Human Rights Commission has been done and submitted to the FAS Ethics Committee, we expect that there will be an expedited process to determine this case, because Lusaka province cannot store its operation because of one person. If you've observed in recent official duties, not been allowed to officiate those activities. his colleagues have refused. His colleagues believe that he doesn't warrant the position because of his misconduct. There's also allegations that he has mismanaged funds. Lusaka province was allocated some footballs. Before I come to that, let me finish the issue of the sexual allegation. So, at the center of these allegations is, a contact that he's been making or he made towards this lady, and the lady was uncomfortable, according to what we've gathered from our sources. I did reach out to Mr. Maliti on those sexual allegations. He is yet to respond. I also did reach out to Miss Samantha. She advised that she can only comment at a later stage. This was not an appropriate time for her to comment. We look forward to this, to the conclusion of this matter. But sexual allegation in sport is real. This is a tip on the iceberg, because those of us who understand, have an idea, know that there are even coaches who groom youngsters. When you look at that World Cup bound under 17, you want to be very particular about how they are managed. And this again goes to FAS. There has to be a policy on code of conduct, male coaches and the players. There has to be a code of conduct between the players and male members of staff, because those girls are vulnerable. It has now happened to an official. These issues are rampant in Zambian football. The only challenge is you cannot report them because the victims are scared. The victims are scared, dead scared. Talked to some of these victims. Not that I'm happy this has happened to Mr. Mann. The allegations coming up for an investigation is a good thing, because now we can clean the system. We can protect the girl child. We can allow the girl child to take part in football without being taken advantage of. These girls are taken advantage of. It's sad that we have a society which praises molesters, which claps for rapists, who have taken advantage of these girls because of their positions. It must come to an end. And I believe that at the end and the conclusion of this matter, Ms. Samantha must come out and tell us. Women representatives in all the provinces must come up with a strict code of conduct. The girl child deserves protection. No one should be taken advantage of because of their status in society. Like I said earlier, these girls come from very, for lack of a better term, poor environments, less privileged environments. When they're given an opportunity to play at a club, at a national team, for them, it's a career opener. For them, it's an opportunity to make it big so they can help their families. We deal with these girls. I've been in women football for the last 30 years or so. And when I talk about these issues, it is from an informed position, a well-informed position. And this is why I'm very particular about the protection of the girl child in women's sports, particularly in Zambia. Let's protect them. And I believe that Miss Samantha's case should open avenues for us to resolve the situation. We may not be perfect, but we can get somewhere to protect the girl child. I'm hoping that when this matter is determined, I can have Miss Samantha here for an interview. Hope she'll be free to discuss these issues. For somebody who's played football, for somebody who's been in football, if I know what I know, then there must be more she knows than I do. But our society is so timid. We cannot talk about these issues. We are scared opportunities will be taken away from us. We are scared they will come heavy on us. But our children need protection. Our ladies need protection. If two consenting adults agree to go on a certain path, there's nothing you can do about that. Those are adults. But no one should be taken advantage because of their social status in order for them to get an opportunity to play for the Copper Queens, in order for them to get an opportunity to run for office as a women's representative in any of these provinces. None of these women should be taken advantage of. I hope and trust Daniel Katova is listening to this. We need a code of conduct, a policy on how women will be treated in Zambian football. You might wish to know, the moment I started writing about these issues, even if they took me to court, introduced matrons around all women's team. So each women's team must have a matron. But how effective are these matrons in these women's teams? Hired a safeguarding officer. There's now a safeguarding officer, or they deployed the safeguarding officer right at Football House. These things, before we discussed the issues around 2023, they never used to happen in Zambian football. They never used to happen in Zambian football. I'm glad there was a step that was made, but nothing significant was done. We now need a radical approach to protect the girl child in our game. The credibility of football governance depends on institutions acting consistently, fairly, and transparently. So I hope that FAS will take these matters seriously, and a resolution will be found in due course. On that note, I do appreciate and I'm grateful that you joined us tonight. As always, thank you for supporting Augustine's Final Whistle. If you have not already done so, please subscribe on our YouTube channel, like the video, share it also with your friends, and join the conversation in the comment section. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, as well as TikTok. My name, as always, is Augustine. Good night. Stay safe. Until the next time, may the good Lord bless you and protect you. Shalom. Shalom.
You could